This natural product has been collected by the inhabitants of the Maltese population since time immemorial. Unfortunately, its production has decreased through time. This could be attributed to various reasons, but primarily as a result of human intervention within the natural environment. We are here talking about honey, an emblematic symbol of Malta's culinary identity. Evidence from Malta's checkered past immediately introduces us to the geography of honey. In actual fact, the evidence indicates 4 separate locations. The first one is the one right behind us, which is St. Agatha Tower. The second location is the one located not far away from here, which is Salmon Tower. And then the 2 ridges of Shamshia and another one overlooking Golden Bay. In actual fact, even topographic names have been associated with beekeeping and honey production of these particular areas. So the quadrilateral of honey is represented by Nahaliya, which is overlooking Golden Bay. There's also the dual name of Mjibah, used for both Salmon and obviously Shamshia. The culmination of all of this is also indicating, among other things, that through the evidence, many have identified this area, particularly the Garrigue landscape within this area, as one of the finest sources of honey in Malta. In actual fact, wild thyme honey. Evidence is actually dotted with information about honey and beekeeping in Malta. Going back to medieval times, the 3 Arab geographers, Al-Idrisi, Ibn Khaldun, and Al-Himyari, have made references to wild bees and honey collection from Malta. We are also informed about the transfer of arable land, particularly through notarial archives, contracts which indicate not just the transfer of land, but also in some cases the transfer of casa di api, in other words, apiaries. We are also then introduced to the 17th and 18th century travelers, adventurers coming from different parts of Europe who would stop during their visits and record their immediate experiences. Also included in Malta, among other things, they've crystallized their memories of tasting the Maltese honey product. So far we have spoken about popular perceptions. However, taste is very subjective. We all know that the island of Malta has, for a very long period of time, imported products to sustain its population. The reality also is that these foreign products often generated a higher price on the market. However, honey is an exception. So no wonder why the exceptional story related to honey and its narrative has withstood the test of time.
Honey was also referred to as medicine. The Hospitalier Knights of the Order of St. John were well versed in the use of honey to cure the sick and the wounded. During the 4-month siege of 1565, the knights made use of honey when nursing the besieged. While defending the fortified stronghold of Birgu from impending Ottoman attacks, the knights, flanked by foreign and Maltese soldiers, resisted assault after assault. Medical care was available around the clock, as the Hospitaliers ensured that most of the able-bodied men seeking shelter within the walls could continue fighting the enemy. Within this challenging environment, honey's unique properties played a crucial role. It was a perfect agent to cover burns and lacerations, reducing the risks of infection. Some also believed that honey possessed magical properties. The two prostitutes, Caterina Giove and Angela de Riva, traveled all the way from Valletta to appear in front of the Inquisitor to confess their sins. Desperation resonates with fear. The Inquisitor listened patiently to their plea for forgiveness. Among the list of ingredients in their magical charms, Giove and de Riva used honey. Other testimonies shed light on the everyday use of honey among the Maltese.
Grandmaster Pinto is often remembered for his flamboyant character. This could also be said in relation to his sophisticated taste. He was a little bit of a gastronome. In fact, he loved his food and he also loved his drink. He also invested large amounts of money, time and energy in developing food-related projects, including an exercise related to honey itself. In fact, in the National Archives, we also come across a very important letter signed by his own hand, which among other things talks about the importance of beekeeping and honey in Malta. Beekeeping activity within the 17th and the 18th century is relatively quite unique within the Mediterranean context. In the case of Malta, the hive is often laid in a horizontal manner. This is also very similar to practices coming from Sardinia, from parts of North Africa, but also the Middle East. A bell-shaped jar, in Maltese referred to as olla, is often laid horizontally, allowing the bees to actually conduct their activity within it. We have a very early representation of 18th century olla, which comes from the refectory of the Jesuit retreat in Casa Manresa in Floriana. This actually represents a bell-shaped jar, which is all perforated, allowing the bees to enter the olla itself from these different openings. However, this changes within the 19th century, where the olla would still remain a bell-shaped jar. However, it would only have a single opening through which the bees could conduct their activity. What is also relatively quite important as far as beekeeping is concerned is that we are not just dealing with the golden liquid that we often associate honey with, but actually in the local market one could also find different varieties of honeys, even another type of honey often referred to in the documents as mela negra. There are different discussions related to what is the provenance of mela negra. Some hold the opinion that this is the source of carob tree flowers. Others believe that the mela negra is basically the byproducts, or otherwise the leftovers from beehive itself. We also find references to the mela negra in our documentation, such as, for instance, 1751 record from the Libri Carcerati, the prisons records, which inform us about a young boy, a 13-year-old boy, who actually bites on the thigh of Antonio de Dum, a honey seller in Valletta itself. We also get to know about Lazzaro Abela from Zaytun, who in March 1781 would actually steal from the shop of Giovanni Micallef a jar full of honey. However, the jar didn't travel too far because Lorenzo actually dropped it, spilling the honey all over the floor. In less than a blink of an eye, the Accattapani, who are basically the market police, were on top of him, arrested him, and spent the rest of the day in the squalid prisons of the civil courts of justice in Valletta. By the end of the 18th century, sugar becomes one of the most important products as a sweetening agent. This would slowly but surely take over from the role of honey as a sweetening agent. Evidence of this is clearly indicated from a 1748 manuscript written by a Sicilian who goes by the name of Michele Marcheca. Marcheca, in fact, includes 81 recipes in this manuscript, and by the end of the 18th century, only 2 of them would actually refer to honey. Therefore, as a result of that, this is a clear indication of how slowly but surely honey would be replaced by sugar, especially on the tables of the aristocracy around the world, including Malta.
Looking at the recipe book for the chef who prepared sweets for Pope Alexander VII, formerly Inquisitor Fabio Chigi, we'll notice that honey still played a central role. In fact, it was much more commonly used for sweet confections. This is definitely the case for pan papato, a sweet with various luxurious ingredients for the aristocratic tables of the 17th and 18th centuries. Now let us join taste history chef Joseph Cassar for a contemporary version of pan papato.
For the pan papato, we need the flour. We have 300 grams of flour. We have the spices, we have the nutmeg, we have the cinnamon and cloves as well. We have 300 grams of almonds, 300 grams of candied peel, 120 milliliters of honey, and 120 milliliters of water. And then for the glazing, at the end, after we bake it, we have the eggs. We're going to use the egg whites and pistachios as well, crushed pistachios. So first we start with the flour. We put the flour in a big bowl. And then we mix the dry ingredients, so basically the spices. We have the cloves, nutmeg, and cinnamon. And we need to ensure that these are mixed well so that they will be evenly distributed within our mix. Then we move on with the almonds, whole almonds. And also with the candied peel. Once the dry ingredients are well mixed, then we can start adding the wet ingredients. So we're going to start off with the honey, and then gradually we're going to add the water. And then gradually we start adding the water. Until we combine all the ingredients together. And basically the mixture will stop sticking to the bowl. So basically now we need a tray and a mold so that we can basically form or shape our bread. So we're going to grab about half our mixture and we're going to place it in our silicone mold. This is a silicone mold, so basically it does not need to be greased in case we're using an aluminum or a metal mold. We need to brush the mold with butter and then we dust it with flour. And then I'm just going to wet it with my fingers so that I can smoothen out a bit the surface. Then with the remaining dough, I'm going to basically form a bun. A bun shape. Place it on the baking sheet and then I'm going to prepare a roll. So basically, for the last stage of this recipe, all we have to do is we need to bake the bread in a hot oven of 170 degrees for about 35 minutes or until it is golden brown. So now we need to glaze our bread basically with honey and egg white, and then we're going to sprinkle the pistachios on top. So what we need to do, we need to leave it to rest a bit for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We can put it on a cooling rack so that it cools down even quicker, and then we can slice it. As you can see, it is a dense bread. There are no holes, and it is very rich with nuts and fruit. And basically, this is the recipe.